Hi, my name's Emery, and $8,400 of mine vanished in just one night. No warning, no apology, just my husband's sister looking me dead in the eye saying, "I just used your card for breakfast." That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a routine. One I had funded for years, rent, bills, parties I wasn't invited to, all in my name. And when I finally said enough, their smiles disappeared, and the deportation orders arrived. But here's what no one expected. I was documenting everything. Every lie, every charge, every betrayal. So, what kind of family uses you like a credit card, then calls you the problem when it gets declined? I woke just before first light, the sky outside my bedroom window still gray and tentative, dawn spilling like a warning across the sill. The world was holding its breath. Beside me, Celine, my daughter, my anchor, slept soundly, her small frame curled beneath the blanket, soft breaths rising and falling in steady rhythm. Careful not to disturb her, I slipped from the bed, the floorboards cool under my bare feet. I padded into the kitchen, where the humid Texas air pressed through the screen door like a weight. The morning smelled of petrichor, the faint trace of last night's rain lingering in the soil, mixing with the rich aroma of coffee as I filled the kettle and clicked the burner on. My phone rested on the counter, its screen lit faintly with notifications. Among them, the bank app icon glowed like a beacon, pulling me toward it. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, lifted my coffee mug to my lips, and tried to focus on the routine of packing Celine's lunch. Half a turkey sandwich, carrot sticks, an apple. My hands moved automatically, tracing the patterns of a mother's morning. But then my phone buzzed again. I glanced down casually, until the words on the screen cut through me like glass. $8,400. Luxury dining boutique stores. I froze, the apple nearly slipping from my hand. My heart stuttered, then thumped so violently it felt as though the sound echoed through the kitchen. I blinked once, twice, telling myself I had misread it, but the numbers stayed. The charge was real. My card number, my account. The color drained from my face. I double-checked the date. After midnight. Last night. At an hour, I was home, asleep, curled beside my daughter. There was no way this could have been me. The sandwich bag fell onto the counter with a dull, heavy thud. My mind scrambled, reaching for explanations. Did I leave my card at dinner? Did someone skim it? Fraud? Or... A colder thought coiled through me. Isolde. I re-entered the app, logging out and back in, as though repetition might undo reality. But the transaction remained, immovable. With dread burning in my throat, I crossed the house. Isolde was there, curled on the couch like she owned it, hair undone, hoodie loose around her shoulders. The glow of her phone lit her face as she scrolled, a small smile tugging at her lips. She even laughed quietly, as if the world were perfectly in order. The contrast made my stomach twist. My hands clenched before I forced them still. "Isolde," I said, steadying my voice. "Did you use my card?" She didn't look up, didn't flinch. Her thumb flicked the screen. "Yeah," she said breezily. "Just breakfast." Just breakfast. The words drifted from her mouth like feathers, light, casual. But each one stung as it landed, piercing deeper than any shout ever could. She repeated it. Just breakfast. As if saying it twice would shrink $8,400 into something negligible. As if dismissiveness could erase betrayal. I stood there, rooted, silence crowding the space between us. Then I turned, walked back to the bedroom, and closed the door softly. My composure remained intact on the outside, but inside I shook. I hadn't expected confrontation yet. Not like this. Not so bare, so shameless. Oh, I sat on the bed's edge, pulled my laptop close, and began digging. Emails, archived bank statements, account logs. My fingers flew across the keys, searching for the patterns my heart already suspected. One by one, charges surfaced. Boutiques, restaurants, designer stores, transactions I never authorized. Each line item felt like another knife twisting. Later, I found Callan in the kitchen. He stood by the counter with a mug of coffee in one hand, the newspaper folded neatly beside him. Light filtered in through the blinds, casting stripes across his shoulders. I held out my phone, the list of transactions glowing. My voice was low, sharp as broken glass. Look at this. $8,400. You know who did this. He rubbed at his eyes, sighed, and set the cup down with unnecessary calm. It's just money, Emery. Why are you making it a thing? Just money. His tone was even, but the dismissal behind it cut deeper than any raised voice could have. It wasn't lack of belief. It was worse. It was the insinuation that my outrage was frivolous, that my pain, my betrayal, was nothing but noise. I couldn't breathe in that kitchen anymore. I turned, walked back to the bedroom, and let the door close behind me. Silence swallowed me whole. But silence doesn't erase memory. It came back in shards. The rent I'd paid when they were short. Gas money, groceries, flights, birthday gifts, emergency credit lines I covered because it was family. Hot lunches for Isolde when she insisted she deserved them. Every sacrifice, every dollar spent, stacked high, and never once met with gratitude. Each favor became an expectation, and each expectation became a chain. I sat with the memories pressing in. Outside, morning light grew stronger, painting my walls in gold. Inside, I pulled the blanket tighter around me, shielding myself from the chill that wasn't in the air but in my bones. My gaze drifted to Celine, still asleep, her hair messy, her face peaceful, and the thought pierced me. What kind of example am I setting? That it's noble to always forgive, to always pay, to always bleed for others until you're nothing but wounds. No. I opened the bank app again, pulled up transactions, and began the work. Screenshot after screenshot. Then to the printer, bank statements rolling out, page after page, ink marking the evidence of years. I spread them across the bed, circling numbers, scribbling notes, building comparisons. What I paid, what they claimed, what I ever asked in return. By noon, I had created a new folder on my desktop. Its title was plain, but pointed, For When They Deny. I locked my phone, stood, and stepped outside. The Texas air hit me thick and hot, clinging to my skin. I inhaled deeply, letting the sun burn away the chill still coiled in my chest. I walked the length of the yard, eyes tracing every corner of the house. Isolde's car sat in the driveway, casual as her shrug. Vera's flowers bloomed by the porch, bright and oblivious. Callan's tools lay neatly stacked in the garage, each one glinting with order. All of it stood on a foundation I had poured, my labor, my compromises, my sacrifices. But as I looked at it now, something inside me shifted. For years I had let myself fade, the ghost who quietly kept everything together, the fixture no one thanked but everyone leaned on. No more. This was not just breakfast. It was not a simple charge or a single moment of theft. It was a symptom of everything, years of expectation, entitlement, and disregard. And standing there in the hot Austin air, the sun sharp on my shoulders, I felt it clear as day. I would not fade anymore. The next morning, I didn't speak a word, but I made a copy of that binder and locked it in my office drawer. Sunlight peeked through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the carpet. I dressed quietly, Celine already at the kitchen table, spooning oatmeal. The air smelled of toast and melting butter. My phone buzzed once, Isolde asking, "Coffee later?" I deleted the message without reading. She didn't deserve courtesy. Dinner that night felt like walking on eggshells. Vera was humming in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, carrying herself with that light air of control, her apron crisp, sleeves rolled. Isolde sat across the table, scrolling her phone, occasionally glancing up at me, those eyes like someone trying to decide if I still belonged. The overhead light was warm, but it offered no comfort. I cleared my throat. "About last night," I said, voice steady though my stomach tightened. "The $8,400 charge, it's not about money. It's about trust." Silence swallowed the room. Vera paused from stirring. Isolde shrugged without looking away from the screen. "Trust," Vera said, setting her spoon down. "You always pay for things. If Isolde wants something, she just asks, or she doesn't. You don't need to make everything into a battle." My heart pounded. I sat up straighter. Isolde didn't ask. She charged my card without telling me. And you expect me to ignore that? Because I always do? Callan didn't say anything. He dragged a chair back, leaned forward. It's just a meal, Em. They're family. Can't you just let this one go? Let it go? I repeated, voice low, tired. I've let go of so much already. My energy, my honesty, my peace. Let it go once more, and I'd stop recognizing myself. No one met my eyes. Vera dabbed her mouth with a napkin, betrayed by the silence. Isolde's fingers landed hard on the table, as though she might snap something. But she stayed quiet. After dinner, I returned to my bedroom, handbag in hand. I sat on the edge of the bed, light from the lamp soft but revealing. I retrieved the binder from where I keep important things, the one I built with old bills, emails, screenshots. The truth, laid out in messy order, but real. I spread pages around the bed, past rent payments, shared utility bills, hotel stays, dinners for Vera's friends, all transactions I covered, all in my name. I traced my finger along a spreadsheet I made, totals ending up in 5 figures. $70,000 in the past 5 years, just for what I thought was part of being good family. Good daughter-in-law, good helper, good caretaker. I closed the binder. The weight of that sum, no matter how accurate, made me both hollow and full, hollow from the cost, full with resolve. As midnight approached, I stood by the window, city lights of Austin glowing beyond the street. I thought about Celine sleeping upstairs, thinking I would do anything for family. I wondered if someday she would see that kindness shouldn't be taken like currency. I dimmed the lamp and made a decision. I retrieved a sticky note, wrote in careful letters, "You cannot buy respect by going broke for people who never valued you." I pressed it inside my drawer where I keep the binder, locked it, then lay down. Sleep came slowly, but it came. 2 mornings later, I woke to the faint hum of traffic drifting up from the street below, the steady rhythm of tires against asphalt blending with the soft whir of the ceiling fan above me. The sunlight pushed through the curtains in pale stripes, laying across the hardwood floor like bars of gold. I stayed still for a moment, not because I was tired, but because I was afraid of what would come once I moved. My heart, once restless and thrashing in the dark of night, now beat with a muted thud, quieter, but carrying the same heavy reminder of what I had uncovered. Instinctively, I reached across the bed, fingertips brushing the cool sheet where Celine had been. Her side was already empty, the faint smell of her breakfast tray lingering in the air. She was up and about long before me, as usual. I slipped out carefully, not wanting to disturb the fragile calm of the morning. I told myself I was already late for work, but I knew better. The weight that pressed on me had nothing to do with time. It was the weight of truth, of betrayal, of all the silent years when I let things slide. The shower was quick. Steam clouded the mirror until my reflection was nothing more than a blurred outline, as if even glass didn't want to hold my gaze. I towel-dried my hair with brisk, impatient strokes and pulled on a blouse the color of a clear spring sky, one of my favorites. I paired it with dark jeans, simple but intentional. I wanted to look like someone serious, someone steady, someone done with being overlooked. Before I left, I paused at the kitchen counter. My eyes fell on the ceramic mug Celine had given me last Mother's Day, bright yellow with little hearts, the kind of handmade gift that children put all their effort into. I had never really used it, not because I didn't love it, but because no one seemed to notice if I did or didn't. It had sat there, mostly ignored, just like so many small parts of me had been. Today, though, I picked it up. I didn't drink from it, but I placed it deliberately in the sink. It was such a tiny act, but in that moment, it felt like drawing a line in the sand. By the time I sat down at my desk in the study, laptop open, the decision was already made. My email tab blinked with unread messages, but I ignored them. My hand hovered over the phone before I dialed the fraud hotline at the bank. My voice shook at first when I said the words. I believe someone opened an account under my name without my permission. On the other end, the representative was calm, detached, polite. I answered their questions, recited my social security number, uploaded copies of my ID and statements, and attached the screenshots I had been collecting in secret. Every click sent a jolt through me, but also a surge of relief. For once, I wasn't just swallowing what they did. For once, I was protecting myself. That afternoon, as I dusted the shelves in the living room, the metallic clatter of the mailbox startled me. I wandered over, expecting coupons or catalogs, but there it was, a plain white envelope stamped Nordstrom. My name was printed on the front. My stomach tightened. I tore it open and froze. Past due balance. I had never ordered a thing from them. The statement listed a credit card, attached to an email and phone number I recognized too well. Isolda's. The betrayal didn't feel sharp. It felt icy. My chest hollowed out. Page after page of charges, everyone a reminder of how my name, my identity, was nothing but a mask for their convenience. My hands trembled, not with weakness, but with fury. I thought of every time I'd quietly covered for them, every time I'd let the little things pass because keeping peace seemed easier than making war. It wasn't easier. It was erasure. Dinner that night should have been ordinary. Pasta simmered, garlic and butter warming the air. Callan was still at the office, but Vera and Isolde sat across from me at the table. Vera passed a bowl of salad. Isolde smiled as if nothing in the world was wrong. My hands stayed steady as I placed the Nordstrom envelope right between us on the clean tablecloth. Someone used my identity to open a credit account, I said. This came today. It's under my name. The silence was brief. Isolde's face twitched. First surprise, then a quick shadow of guilt, and finally anger. Vera sighed heavily, her fork clinking against the plate. This is stupid, she snapped. We've always shared things. You don't need to start accusing. Isolde leaned in, her tone sharp. Maybe you forgot the emails I sent, asking you to confirm stuff. Her words were slippery, an attempt to plant doubt. But I had lived in doubt long enough. My voice stayed calm. I never got those emails, and tonight I got another alert, $3,000 withdrawn from the joint account. By you, Vera. The room went still. Vera's eyes flickered, then darted down. I had the records, the bank logs, the email alerts, the transcripts. I placed them on the table with a quiet finality. Vera's cheeks flushed. I needed the money. It wasn't for me, she said, her voice breaking into a stammer. For what? For bills? For Isolde's shopping? Which part of my name, my account, did you think belonged to you? I asked. My tone wasn't raised, but it cut all the same. I didn't wait for their excuses to pile up like dirty dishes. I rose, leaving them frozen at the table, and walked back into my study. My fingers flew over the keyboard. A new account, opened just yesterday, gleamed like a lifeline. I transferred the balance. I closed the old joint account. I revoked permissions on every card, every shared bill. Each click felt like releasing a breath I had been holding for years. Later, when the house quieted, I sat in Celine's room. Her little head rested against my chest as I read her a bedtime story. She giggled at the pictures, her small fingers tracing the drawings on the page. Her innocence was almost too much to bear. She trusted me completely. She deserved a mother who stood firm, not one who lived bowed under lies. I kissed her forehead and whispered into her hair, words I rarely let myself say out loud. Mommy's trying to make things right. When the lights were out, I lay in bed again, phone dark beside me, the silence heavy but different. My pillow was damp beneath my cheek, though I hadn't realized I'd been crying. I thought of Isolde, of Vera, of Callan. They would see me now, not just the one who quietly paid, the one who swallowed every slight. They would see me as the woman who drew her own line, who defended her own name, who refused to let her life be written by someone else's lies. And this time, there was no going back. It wasn't just the fraud alerts or the stolen withdrawals that hardened me. What truly pushed me past forgiveness came late one evening when I overheard Isolde's friends talking. Their mocking words, their laughter, the casual cruelty in their tone, like I was nothing more than a punchline, cut deeper than the theft ever could. They assumed I wouldn't hear. They assumed wrong. That weekend, Isolde insisted I join her so-called girls' get-together. She painted it as something light-hearted, friendly. It'll be nice, she said on the phone, her voice sweet but insistent. I knew better. I felt the trap of it before I even stepped out the door, but a part of me wanted to see, to witness it with my own eyes and ears. The Texas sun was merciless that afternoon. My car idled at the curb, the air conditioner barely strong enough to cut the heat. Sweat dampened the back of my neck as I stared into the side mirror. My hair was tied back, blouse buttoned, jeans neat. Nothing fancy, but nothing careless either. I straightened my collar and drew a long breath, holding it until my chest ached. Then I stepped out, salad bowl in one hand, bottle of iced tea in the other, armor made from politeness. The living room smelled faintly of expensive perfume and fresh-cut flowers. Laughter spilled under the lazy spin of the ceiling fan. I paused on the threshold, listening. A voice, loud enough for me to catch, rang out. "She's like a walking ATM. Honestly, why does she let them treat her like that?" A ripple of snickering followed. Another chimed in. "Every time we show up, she's paying. At what point does she say enough?" Then came Isolda's voice, unmistakable, smooth as glass. "Emery? She wouldn't say no if you drained her dry. It's kind of fun." My chest clenched so tight I thought I might drop the salad right there. My fingers trembled against the plastic lid, lettuce and tomato scent drifting up, suddenly sour. For a moment I froze in the doorway. The impulse to turn around, to flee before they saw me, pulsed through me. But another impulse, darker and stronger, told me to stay, to hear every word, to let them reveal themselves. I set the salad on the coffee table, forcing my hands steady, painting a smile I didn't feel. "More iced tea?" I asked, my voice level. No one looked up. They giggled at something on their phones, smirks passing from screen to face. The laughter was thin but sharp. I poured the tea anyway. A drop splashed onto the edge of the tray. My hand jerked, but I caught it before it tipped. Normal movements, I told myself. Normal, while my heart thundered. Vera's eyes caught mine for a split second. She arched a brow, as though testing me, but said nothing. Isolde smirked, the corner of her mouth lifting in triumph, as if this entire performance was staged just for her. Dinner followed in the dining room, the chandelier casting warm light on plates of pasta, steamed vegetables, and garlic bread. I ate little. Each bite felt mechanical, my throat dry despite the iced tea. Isolde served cheesecake for dessert, the knife sliding neatly through the creamy slices. One of her friends chuckled, nudging the plate toward me. "Save me a bite, Emery. I know you'll cover this too." The words struck like a stone to the chest. I forced a swallow, blinking back tears I refused to let them see. Hours later, the house was quieter. I carried Celine upstairs, her small arms wrapped around her stuffed rabbit. She wore pink pajamas patterned with stars, her hair still smelling faintly of shampoo. In her bedroom, the lavender diffuser glowed softly. I tucked her beneath the quilt, smoothing the fabric across her chest. She yawned, eyelids heavy. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Mom, why do they always talk bad about you? You buy everything. You help them all the time." I froze, one hand stilling on the blanket. Children saw more than adults gave them credit for. She had heard enough to wonder, enough to hurt. I knelt, brushing hair from her forehead. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people expect things because they get used to what you give, and when you stop, they don't always notice or say thank you." Her brow furrowed. She clutched her rabbit tighter, but the worry melted as sleep pulled her under. I held her hand a little longer than usual, tracing the innocence in her fingers, the unbroken trust. She didn't need to know everything now. Not yet. But someday, she would understand. Downstairs, the party was thinning. Perfume lingered in the air as goodbyes were exchanged, cheek kisses, forced hugs, polite laughter that no longer touched me. I gathered empty glasses, rinsed plates, let the hum of running water drown my bitterness. My face, reflected faintly in the kitchen window, looked calm, but my chest burned with words unsaid. Later, alone in my bedroom, the lamp lit a soft circle over the desk. A thick binder sat there, bulging with receipts, invoices, notes. I opened it, fingers brushing over the paper trails of years. Dinners paid for, bills covered, debts excused and forgotten by everyone except me. In my small notebook, I wrote the words like a confession. I helped them out of love, but they treated its cost like a debt I owed forever. I shut the notebook, slid it into the binder, and closed the cover with finality. Then I stood at the window. Outside, the city pulsed with light, street lamps glowing, cars hissing along the road, cicadas humming in the trees. The moon hung high and silver, watching. I breathed in. Calm settled over me, but not the old calm that came from burying pain. This was something different. It was strength. It was resolve. Where shame once lived, steel was growing. By Monday, I sat in my lawyer's office, pen in hand. I rewrote everything. My will, my power of attorney, my financial plans. Line by line, clause by clause, I redrew the map of my future. Not for Isolde, not for Vera, not for anyone who mocked me in whispers. This time, it was for Celine, for me, for the woman I was becoming. One who would never again be their silent provider, their easy target, their walking ATM. That Monday morning, I walked into my lawyer's office carrying not only a folder of documents, but also the weight of years of silence and quiet sacrifices. The waiting room smelled faintly of leather chairs and fresh coffee, the hum of printers and the shuffle of papers echoing from behind closed doors. My attorney, a woman with steady eyes and a voice that did not falter, sat across from me as we went line by line, clause by clause. Together, we dismantled the old life I had allowed others to shape for me. My will, my power of attorney. Every account, every safeguard, rewritten with my name at the center. When I finally stepped outside, the downtown Austin sky stretched pale and endless, courthouse glass glinting in the mid-morning sun. Cars surged past on Congress Avenue, horns sharp, pedestrians brisk, but I moved slower, clutching the folder to my chest. It no longer felt like a burden, like a reminder of debts and betrayals. It felt like a shield, an armor built not of steel, but of choice. For the first time in years, the papers in my hands represented protection, not exposure. By Saturday, I told myself I should have been relaxing. The week had been long, filled with signatures, phone calls, and long silences where I let myself grieve what was lost. I made coffee that morning, left it steaming on the table, then let it cool, untouched. My phone buzzed beside it, screen lighting with a familiar glow. I opened Instagram absent-mindedly, scrolling through images of brunch plates and vacation selfies until one story froze me cold, Vera's account. She had tagged Callan, their location geotagged at a rooftop lounge in the 6th Street district. The photo was polished, almost cinematic, candlelit tables arranged beneath string lights, glasses of champagne catching the late sunlight, laughter visible even through a snapshot. The caption, "Can't wait to celebrate Isolde, surrounded by love." My thumb hovered over the screen, my breath caught, my pulse quickened. They were hosting a birthday party. Hosts, Vera and Callan. Guest of honor, Isolde. And me, absent, uninvited, erased from the table once again. I set my phone down, hands trembling, coffee long forgotten. A knot of ice twisted in my chest. I knew, without question, where the money had come from. My money. The same money I had spent the week protecting, walling off, securing for a future they had no right to. While I was sitting in an office rewriting my life, they were planning this, a rooftop celebration on my back. I forced myself to move. I dressed deliberately, though I had no party to attend. Jeans, a simple shirt, walking shoes. If I couldn't join their glittering rooftop, I would take myself somewhere honest. I crossed the bridge over Lady Bird Lake as the afternoon sun bounced across the water's surface, shimmering in fractured light. I paused midway, looking down at the reflection rippling below. Mine, not theirs. The city stretched around me, indifferent and alive, reminding me that there was more beyond the narrow walls of family betrayal. By late afternoon, curiosity mixed with caution pulled me back to my phone. I logged into the new business account I had just opened. The ledger told its truth in black and white, $3,200, charged under the note, Isolde's birthday surprise. The line items rolled out like a confession, venue rental, wine service, floral arrangements, decor, all under my account, all without my consent. I didn't shake this time. I didn't rage. Instead, I acted. Calmly. Precisely. I called the bank. My voice, steady. I disputed the charge, explained the fraud, submitted the evidence. I closed the card, replaced it with one no one else could touch. With every keystroke and confirmation, I felt a small surge of power threading through me. It wasn't vengeance, it was reclamation. That evening, while the sky turned from pale gold to indigo, I sat on the porch. The street lamp outside cast long shadows, moths circling the glow. My phone lit with more stories from Isolda's friends, champagne toasts under the rooftop lights, gowns sparkling against the skyline, flower petals scattered across white linens. Somewhere in that laughter, someone sang, "Happy Birthday." Vera smiled for the camera. Callan raised his glass. I did not go. I did not storm the venue or shatter their party with accusations. I did something quieter, but sharper. I opened the family group chat and typed, "Enjoy the party. Next one you throw, pay for it yourselves." I attached 3 things: the statement showing the $200 charge, the bank's dispute confirmation, and a screenshot of Vera's Instagram post. Evidence lined up like soldiers. Then, without waiting for their excuses or guilt-tripped replies, I blocked the group. I blocked their calls. I let silence carry my answer. Later that night, Celine padded into her room in her pink pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I tucked her beneath lavender-scented sheets, brushing her hair from her forehead. Her voice, small but clear, asked, "What's wrong, Mom?" I didn't mention rooftops or stolen money or sisters who smiled while draining me dry. I simply said, "Mommy is making changes." She nodded, satisfied, her eyes closing with trust that I would make the world right again. I kissed her forehead, lingered in the sound of her steady breathing, her innocence unshaken. When she slept, I returned to my desk. The lamp cast a warm glow over the binder that had grown heavier each day, stuffed with receipts, invoices, screenshots. I opened it, checked the rows of emails I'd sent, the responses I'd saved, the paper trail of years they thought I would never keep. Then I turned to my computer. I changed passwords. I locked files. I logged out of every shared account. One old card, cracked and unused, I slid into a drawer with rusted hinges, shutting it with finality. Yes, fatigue clung to me, but beneath it pulsed something sharper. A quiet satisfaction. For once, I had not looked away. For once, I had not let them rewrite me as a fool or a wallet. When night deepened, I stood at my bedroom window. The city stretched out in lights, bobbing and glittering. Somewhere in that expanse, laughter still rose from Isolda's rooftop party. But here, inside my home, was quiet. Safe. Mine. I breathed slowly, chest rising with dignity instead of shame. I knew the road ahead would not be smooth. Family rarely allowed clean breaks. But I also knew one truth now. I was no longer theirs to define, not their victim, not their bank, not their shadow. For the first time in years, I chose myself. When they destroyed the one thing I had carefully saved for Isolda's future, I knew, without hesitation, that we had crossed the point of no return. That afternoon, the sunlight didn't feel warm or forgiving. It felt merciless, bouncing harshly off the shards of broken glass scattered across the living room floor. The window pane had shattered after Isolda's tantrum, her rage erupting like a storm in the house we all shared. I couldn't tell what broke first, the glass or my patience, but I knew something inside me had splintered for good. Hours later, as twilight settled and the cicadas droned outside, I returned home to find a small cardboard box resting on my porch. There was no return address, no name, just a silent square of cardboard waiting like an omen. I lifted it, carried it inside, and set it down on the dining table with a breath that felt heavier than the object itself. My hands hesitated before pulling back the flaps. Inside, I found my wedding dress. The once white fabric was yellowed, its lace edges frayed, torn in places where the threads had given way. The scent rose up faintly, old perfume mixed with mildew, like a memory spoiled by time. My fingers traced the sleeve and found a jagged rip. A knot rose in my throat, choking me. Then I saw it, a folded slip of paper tucked between the folds of lace. The note was short, written in Vera's familiar looping script. It's not her style anymore. I froze, my heart clenching around those words. I remembered that day years ago, our wedding under warm September skies, the light filtering through oak branches like golden ribbons. I had laughed with Callan, told him that maybe one day Isolde could wear this dress, that maybe she could stand in the same lace, feel included, feel cherished, feel loved. At the time, I believed it. I thought love was a circle that expanded when you shared it. But as I stood in my kitchen, clutching the torn fabric, I understood it had never been shared at all. It had only been used, taken, twisted. That dress was never just fabric. It was trust. And now trust lay in pieces, as tattered as the lace. When night fell, I busied myself in the kitchen, washing dishes in silence. The light above the sink was harsh compared to the fading orange glow of the sunset outside. I scrubbed plates one by one, dried them, stacked them as carefully as if they were evidence. Perhaps, in some way, they were, each act of domestic labor an unspoken record of what I had endured. I ate quietly, a bowl of noodle soup. Each bite was slow, deliberate, my grief settling in layers I had no words for. But I couldn't sit in grief forever. Not anymore. I changed clothes, pulling on something simple but steady. I grabbed my keys and drove downtown, the city lights beginning to bloom against the darkening sky. My playlist hummed low, background to the steadiness of my own breathing. My destination, the Federal Building. The lobby was vast and ice-white, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The air smelled sterile, unyielding. My binder felt heavy in my hands as I stepped up to the desk. Inside that binder were years of paper trails, receipts, invoices, screenshots, emails, proof of every time they had used my accounts, every clandestine charge, every expense passed off as if my identity were theirs to wield. I opened it, the pages trembling slightly under my fingers, not from weakness, but from the knowledge that trembling did not mean powerless. Trembling could mean strength finally put to use. The officer behind the counter looked up, eyes steady. I steadied my voice and spoke. Several members of my husband's family are undocumented. They've been using my identity, my address, my documents, for benefits that aren't theirs. I need to file a report. I slid the binder forward, its marked pages open to account numbers, false addresses, email trails. The officer leafed through, his brow furrowing, his silence deliberate. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured, carrying the weight of authority. "We will investigate." He did not promise more than that, but in his gaze, I recognized the same gravity that lived in mine. I left the building with my chest hollowed out but steadied. Empty, yes, but emptiness could be filled with resolve. In the days that followed, I lived like someone preparing for a storm, every move calculated, every step measured. I memorized the date of Isolde's visa renewal interview. I traced the local agency's calendar, studied addresses, mapped the routes. My binder became my compass. On the morning of her scheduled renewal, I sat at my desk, heart pounding, and drafted an updated report. I attached the marked documents. I flagged it urgent. When I clicked send, my finger hovered, trembling for half a second. Then it pressed down. And in that press, I felt more honest, more aligned with myself than I had in years. That evening, the house shifted into chaos. Callan stormed down the hallway, his voice breaking, panic etched into every syllable. Vera clutched her coat, pacing like a caged animal, eyes darting to me as if I held answers. Isolde slammed her bedroom door, but it never shut properly. The frame always caught. The latch never held. Their panic filled the air like smoke. I sat in the living room, hands folded in my lap, still as stone. I knew they suspected. They could feel my resolve like heat rising, but they didn't know everything. They didn't know how far ahead I had prepared. Outside, city lights flickered alive as dusk gave way to night. I watched through the window, the glass reflecting my face against the glow of street lamps. My phone buzzed in my lap. I looked down. Subject line: Deportation proceedings initiated. The sender: ICE. My breath caught. A strange wave washed through me. Not joy, not triumph. Relief. Not revenge, but reset. I read the words twice, let them sink in, then closed the email. I didn't smile. I didn't shout. I only nodded, slow and steady, sealing my resolve. That night, the house trembled with noise. Vera's sobs, Isolde's shrill accusations, Callan's stunned disbelief echoing off the walls. Somewhere amid the clamor, I heard the front door creak on its hinge. Then silence. No footsteps, no return. I knew who had been taken. I knew who would now face what was coming. In my bedroom, I turned off the lamp and let darkness settle. Celine crawled into my arms, her small body curling against mine. She didn't understand the chaos outside her door, but she sensed the shift, the fracture in the air. I kissed her hair and whispered into the stillness, "I love you. We're safe." Sleep was uncertain, but I let my eyes close anyway. Tomorrow, I knew, would demand strength. Justice always does. By morning, half their things were gone, and ice was knocking on the door. I heard the sirens distant, then loud boots on the porch. The mail slot rattled. I opened the door, dressed in daylight, heart pounding. 2 officers stood there, a crisp letter in one's hand. "Good morning, ma'am. We need to serve this notice." He handed the envelope to me, my name printed on it, my throat tight. Callan burst out from the side hallway, his face red, voice raw. He grabbed the paper from my hands as though it burned. "What is this?" he shouted. "You sent this?" His words were jagged. Vera rushed into view, panic on her face. Isolde's room was silent. Something in the silence screamed betrayal. I didn't move at first. I let him yell. I expected him to try to break me with his anger. Instead, I found something inside me colder. Clarity. "Yes," I said. "I filed the complaint. The evidence is in your own voice, your own actions. I can't carry this anymore." The letter rests on my palm, edges crisp yet heavy. Deportation proceedings initiated. Not for me, for them. Callan's hand shot out. He grabbed my arm, hard. "You destroyed this family," he said, voice trembling. "You tore us apart." I winced at the force. I didn't pull away immediately. I let him feel my weight. Then I did. A steady pull. "You reported them?" he repeated. I nodded. "You turned them in. You're just like Vera, thinking you can wash your hands of everything and expect applause." He spat that out. "It hurts, but I have rehearsed this moment too many times in my mind to be collapsed by it now." "It's not about applause," I said, voice unmoving. "It's about truth. It's about respect. You treat me like I owe everything to you. But respect isn't a contract you write with someone else's cost." He clenched his jaw. Tears glistened in Vera's eyes. I could see she understood, just too late. Vera lunged forward. "How could you turn on your own daughter, on your own blood?" Her voice cracked, rage and sorrow obtuse together. "This is not love," I said. "Touch me again. I'll report something else, using your own deeds." I managed the words as if they were instruments, precise and sharp. He backed away. My heart thudded loud enough I thought neighbors might hear. I walked through the hall to the master bedroom. I flicked on the lamp dimly. Shadows danced on the walls. I pulled open the closet, took out my overnight bag, 1 set of clothes, 1 change, then sheets, 1 pillow. I packed these quietly. No theatrics, just necessity. I then moved to the guest room. I locked the door behind me. The guest room was never mine, but it becomes mine now. Alone, I feel the weight of what I've done. Not betrayal, but boundary setting. I strip away pieces of this life that never fit me. In the quiet, I type a message to my lawyer. Initiate separation proceedings. Immediate. I pause. My fingers tremble only for a moment. I hit send. Peace, I thought, not his war. I lie in the guest room as dusk's glow dims through the blinds. Sounds drip through the walls. Vera sobbing, doors slamming, Isolde's footsteps overhead. I listen to Callan's voice, hoarse and broken. Maybe he regrets. Maybe he doesn't. It doesn't matter now. I open my suitcase bag of essentials. I make room for Celine's stuffed bear, the only thing that always comes with me. I fold the dress I wore 2 birthdays ago. The fabric sagged on me then. Now it carries memory. I tuck it inside the bag. I breathe. That night, I text Celine. "Mommy needs to sleep alone tonight." She replies, "I love you, Mom." My chest tightens. Her simple words a balm I didn't know I needed. I hold my phone, then shut it off. I turn off the lamp. Darkness feels different. Not empty, but alive. I lie awake, hearing the echoes of the house, their anger, their betrayal. My phone buzzes. I don't check. I don't need another message. They declared war. I chose peace, just not with them. By morning, half their things were gone, and ice was knocking on the door. The sun had just tinted the sky lavender when I heard the knock. 3 sharp taps, then weight against the door. I stood behind it, the wood cold under my palms. Callan's face appeared in the hallway, disbelief in every line. Vera sobbed behind him. Isolde stood in the doorway too, stunned, clutching nothing. I opened the door. 2 ICE agents stood on the threshold. They wore badges that glinted in the early light. One of them spoke. "Ma'am, we're here under a deportation order. We need to serve this notice to Vera and Isolde." His voice was polite, firm. The kind of voice that makes you shrink. Callan staggered forward, asleep from anger. "You can't do this," he said. "You said this was our home." Vera tried to explain, voice breaking. "They can't just—" But the agent held up a hand. Protocol, paperwork, legal authority. Isolde tried to step back, then reached, but the agent gently restrained her hand. The neighbors watched from across the street. One peek, one window cracked open. Silence spread like wildfire. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt cold. I felt every violation. Because this was never just about paperwork. It was about everything they'd done and everything they'd taken. And now, finally, the law gives me a voice. Later that day, I met with my attorney. The office smelled of leather and polished wood. Light streamed through blinds, cutting patterns on the carpet. I laid out a USB drive, a leather binder. Inside, all our texts, voicemails, receipts, video logs from my laptop, all conversations when someone borrowed money, when someone promised to pay back. Every lie, every omission, every betrayal. I watched her nod. She said, "We'll get your property secured. We'll ensure that no more of your hard work gets used without your say." I asked questions, made sure every if was accounted for. If they contest, if they appeal, if they claim ignorance, I wanted answers. She gave me the path forward. This wasn't revenge, it was protection. I left her office feeling anchored. Back home, the house felt empty, angry. Callan didn't follow Vera and Isolde. He stood in the hallway, pale in the morning light, luggage half packed in the corner. I didn't say anything. I watched him. There was no apology, no relief, only space between us. He didn't move toward me. I didn't move toward him. That week I stayed with my cousin in East Austin. Celine slept in a room painted pale yellow. I held her hand in the night, apologized in silence for everything she saw, everything she now knows too early. She doesn't deserve to inherit heartbreak. She deserves honesty. One morning, I woke to a message from Callan. "I never thought you'd go this far." I paused over it, fingers hovering. Then I typed, "Then you never knew me at all." I didn't expect agreement. I didn't need it. I needed to own my life. That night, I walked down to the bench by Town Lake. A soft breeze rustled leaves. The moonlight shimmered on water. My phone felt heavy in my coat pocket. I sat, legs dangling off the edge of wood. I typed into my notes, "It's time." Then I opened the media contact my lawyer had given me. I stared at the blank message box until words formed. "I'm ready to tell my story," I wrote. I pressed send. And deep down, I felt a shift. Something that had been muted for too long roared quietly. "This is my voice, not theirs." They aired it on national morning TV. And that changed everything. The sun came up over Austin with a kind of gold that felt like a promise. I sat in my new apartment, the one Celine already calls home, holding a cup of tea, heart still pounding from watching myself live on screen. The host asked, "And you stayed silent for years?" My voice stayed calm, though I'd rehearsed that moment 1,000 times. "Yes," I said. until they charged me $8,400 for breakfast and called it favor. I stepped off the stage into the green room. Bright lights, buzz of crew packing cables, makeup smudges left in corners. My lawyer greeted me with a nod. "You were articulate," she said. Celine watched from a screen with my cousin and her best friend, her eyes wide, cheering, proud. That small face on the monitor made it all worth it. Word spread. The morning show clip looped online. Comments flooded. "She's a saint. This is emotional abuse." Good. Finally, someone held them accountable. People sent messages. Women who said they recognized the same story in their own lives. One read, "You helped me leave my abusive family too." I reread that line until it settled in my chest like something true. By midweek, Callan filed for divorce. He cited irreconcilable differences, but his voice cracked in court documents. Emotional sabotage. I already had my evidence prepared: financial records, receipts, proof of exploitation and fraud. My legal team handed it to the judge. I watched through courtroom glass as Callan's face, pale and hollow, registered that he'd lost more than he realized. The judge ruled in my favor. I kept the house. I kept my dignity. He walked out of the courtroom with nothing but a suitcase and silence. In the days after, I signed the lease on my new apartment. It's modest: soft green walls, windows that open wide, wood floors that creak just a little. Celine raced through empty rooms, laughter echoing against bare walls. We moved little by little. My furniture went first, then hers. I look out a window at dusk, watched by street lamps blinking awake. My eyes mist over, not because I feel complete, but because I am beginning to believe I can be. One afternoon, a letter arrived. I recognized the handwriting before I even opened it. Mother's. She passed away years before, but she believed deeply in what family could mean. I read, "If they ever forget your worth, remember mine, because I made you." My hands tremble. I fold the letter, place it inside my nightstand, where I keep things that matter. Celine wakes early now, excited, full of questions about school, friends. I wake too, with hope. I make her oatmeal, pack her lunch, walk her to the bus stop. We hold hands. She skips ahead a little, then looks back, giggling. I smile, strong inside. I am her safe place. At night, I lie on my bed. A bed that's mine, free of expectations I didn't ask for. Outside, the city hums. I think of Vera, of Isolde, of Callan. They are parts of my story, but they do not own its ending. I close my eyes, not to forget, but to rest. Not yet healing completely, but reclamation has begun. Sometimes, the biggest lesson comes not from revenge, but from reclaiming your voice after years of silence. This wasn't just a story about money or betrayal. It was about worth, about learning that love should never come with a receipt. Have you ever stayed silent just to keep the peace, only to lose yourself in the process? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories of strength, survival, and standing up when no one else will.